We cannot determine what is possible. We don't need to know how. You just need to know what you want. Commit to it. And then every day take consistent action towards that, consistent thought towards that, consistent words towards that, over your emotions and over if it gets difficult. Because consistency is way more important than your emotions and whether it's hard or not.
We are currently preparing for our special 50th episode of Going Conscious. So please send me any question you might have that you'd like me to answer during the episode. You can send it to me on Instagram @NikkiTrott, and you may be featured. I'd love to hear from you. So back to this episode. Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco is the co-founder of Blooprinted, best-selling author of Rocket Fuel, Convert Setbacks, and Become Unstoppable, and host of the What Are You Made Of podcast. He has been featured by Yahoo Finance as one of the top business leaders to follow in 2020 and is driven to inspire others. He measures his success on how he is able to help others achieve greatness. In this episode, we talk about how Mike managed to channel his childhood experiences of abuse and a broken home into realizing he is in control of his future and choosing to live an unstoppable life. You're listening to Going Conscious, the podcast where we discover new ways to live a more conscious life of fulfillment and freedom. Each week, I speak with entrepreneurs, academics, and changemakers who have made big transformations, left unfulfilling lives behind, and found meaning in this new world where purpose drives success. Let's get inspired to live our unique journeys to the fullest. Let's explore the impact we want to make and deepen our understanding of ourselves, each other, and this beautiful world around us. Live your freedom. I'm your host, Nikki Trott. In this episode, we talk about how to use gratitude to find opportunities for fuel, how to stick to your guns and take responsibility for your future, what it means to be a spiritual being, and how to take action every day. Now let's go to our conversation. Mike, hello and welcome to Going Conscious.
Nikki, thank you so much for having me. I always start every interview I go with gratitude because it's been such an important thing in my life. I want to thank you and the listeners as well for showing up. It means the world to me.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful way to start. And I'd love to dive right in then and ask you how gratitude has impacted you and your life then.
Well, I'll tell you, I grew up around a lot of broken people in my life, broken household, don't remember my parents ever together. And I did the every other weekend thing with my mom and dad and dealt with the custody battles, child support, conflicts, all that. And there was a lot of drug addicts and alcoholics and mental abuse between my uncles and aunts and grandparents and mom and dad, like step parents, just a lot of stuff going on as a kid. And there was all kinds of things to complain about or point to for not being successful or having a great life. And gratitude comes in where I look at what I did have instead of what I didn't have, or, the opportunities that I had available to me, which I call fuel. So all the stuff that I looked at that was, normally would stop a normal human being or slow a normal human being down, I used it and, as fuel, so that I couldn't be stopped at what I wanted to do. So Nikki, I don't want to take anybody to take this the wrong way, but when I set my sights on something in life, I get it. Everybody does, but they just don't believe it. I do believe it and I get it. So I am just, on a mission to encourage people with that. But gratitude has a lot to do with that. It eliminates everything to complain about.
Amazing. Yeah. And I've read that, you talk about how you had a fire lit inside you at an early age, and that's really guided you in wanting to help other people to find their greatness and actually to use their past life events, which they have experienced, to really fuel that, as you say, to be their fuel. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that, because it's really an incredible idea and something that I know you've written your new book about, which launched this year as well. So please tell us more.
Yeah. So as I said, I grew up in a broken home, and I used to live with my mom until I was about 8 years old. And I would go to my dad's house every other weekend. And, for a period of time I did that. My mom she went through one marriage, her second one, and then that ended. She was moving on to her third marriage. And at 8 years old, I was thinking to myself, like, I don't want to move into another man's house. I don't want to learn another man's rules. Like, I don't want to do that. So I gave my dad's house a shot, and he was welcoming me because he didn't want to pay child support. So, uh, I moved in with my dad and his second wife, my stepmother. And at first, everything seemed great. But when something's going on, you will find out if you're around it long enough. And I started to see, conflict, fighting, jealousy amongst the parents. And, as a kid, when the parents aren't acting like adults, it affects you. It pours down on you. And so by the way, I'm the oldest of 8 kids in all the marriages. And so I witnessed a lot of fighting and conflict and all that. And then I dealt with a lot of abuse. A lot of things were taken out on me when my stepmother had issues with my mom and my dad, I guess. So, I used to sleep with my baseball bat when I was 9 years old because of the things that I would hear and see. And I was just, flat out scared, and I thought that was ordinary. I thought it was ordinary for a period of time. I didn't know any different. Until I started going to my friends' houses and seeing their families and witnessing other things that I wasn't seeing in my own home. And so I started to realize and pay attention to the fact that all the things that were happening in my house that weren't like loving or positive and so eventually I told my mom what was going on. And when you're going through abuse, there's some things that keep you from sharing that information with anyone. One is you sometimes think that you're in an ordinary situation, as I mentioned already. The other thing is sometimes you think, am I really experiencing abuse? Am I overplaying it? I mean, you're not sure that it really, and sometimes you're embarrassed. You're flat out embarrassed that you let it happen in the first place and let it continue. And then the final one is a weird one that you kind of worry or concerned with the abuser and what would happen to them if you said something to someone. So these are all things that went through my mind as a youngster. And I shared with my mom eventually because I just knew something, just wasn't right. And she said, you know what? There is no way you belong in that situation. You should not ever have to live in life like that. I'm going to file court papers for custody. However, when I do this, you cannot leave me hanging out to dry. You got to stick to your guns because they will try to talk you out of it. And in life, when you believe in something, there's going to be plenty of people and other things in life, I'll call them counter efforts, that are going to go against your ideal life that you want or your beliefs. And you need to be able to stick to your guns or be stubborn towards those things. And so that was a great lesson for me at that age is that, when you do that, believe in something, people are going to try to pull you back to the crowd because they get threatened. And so after weeks went by, I was waiting for those court papers to be delivered to my dad's house. And eventually one day I walked in from school and the air, you could just feel something wasn't right. Like the tension was thick. And my dad, who was my hero, he had, a masonry company where he would lay block and brick and pour concrete and he was very successful and he was a hard worker. I could shake his hand and you could tell by the roughness of his hand or the size of his forearms that he was a hard worker. And he used to carry a wad of money around with him. And if anybody knows about Italian construction workers and things, they don't carry a wallet. They usually carry a wad of money with a rubber band around it. And that was him. And he'd show us $100 bills, US bills all the time and flash them. And I thought that was the coolest thing as a kid. I want to have that. So I went back to my room as he told me and ordered me to go to, and I sat and waited for him. And he came back with these court papers and he says, I don't understand something. I'm looking here. It says you want to move back with your mom. Did you start this? And I just shook my head and he said, well, I don't understand because you have everything you need here. You go to your mom's, they don't have any money. She's broke. She's got men coming in and out of the house. She's on to her third marriage. Why would you want to put yourself in that situation? And I guess, I'm not sure if my dad was just blinded to what was going on there or not. But, by the way, Nikki, I don't know if I shared this too many times, but they would be fighting sometimes, my dad and stepmom. And and then she would even direct things at me. And my dad would look kind of around her and give me a thumbs up and wink at me like, just ride it out, that kind of thing. And it would happen all the time. And, eventually it just never got better. So, anyway, I didn't discuss this thing with my dad. I just basically stuck to my guns and said, I'm not discussing this. I made my mind up. And when he got that answer, he took that wad of $100 bills out of his pocket, peeled one off, crumpled it up, and threw it at me and said, here, you're going to need this when you're living on the streets with your mother then. Now at 11, I was about maybe almost 11 years old. The first thing that came to my mind is, what did I do? What did I start? Oh my gosh. Now, very quickly though, after that, I just remember this stubbornness in me, this persistence in me saying, you know what? There is no way that I'm going to need that money. I control my future. I know this. I'm going to be the one, not you. And I just remember that spark lit at that moment. And for 30 some years, subconsciously, I remember living off of this. I can't let him win. I can't let him win. Things get tough. Nope. You got to pick it up. You got to pick it up. You can't let him win. Or things were going great. You got to take it to the next level because you never know when you're going to get pulled back. You cannot let him win. And so that was a driving force in my life. Now, 3 years ago, to wrap this up, 3 years ago, I went through a little bit of struggle in business, some conflict with the ownership that I was working for a company, and money went missing, not on my part, but my money, my team's money. And I just felt like I let my team down. And I was just, I got to do some self-assessment here because this is a pretty big setback here, $1 million plus. And I have to figure something out here because my whole life, no matter what happened to me, I always elevated. I always found a way to elevate no matter what came my way: adversity, discouragement, people talking trash to me, my own screw ups. What is this? If I could just figure out how to control this and identify it, how powerful would that be? So I did a self-assessment. I realized that I was taking everything that came my way. I mentioned this earlier, that would stop me or slow you down, and I was storing it in my fuel tank instead of my trunk, where most people keep their stuff. Most people keep all the toxicity in their trunk where it weighs them down and stops and slows them. I was putting it in a tank, keeping it in there so that I could convert it into rocket fuel for my future and become unstoppable. And I say rocket fuel because I want to go to outer space. I don't want to just come into, just maybe into the sky a little bit. I want to go to outer space away from gravitational pull, which is all that toxicity. And so that's a little backstory on me and how I got the drive and the mission and how I want to share this with people. And I'll stop there, but I'll add more to it as we go.
Amazing. Thank you. And it's always so inspiring to hear about how people use their struggles and challenges to really turn their life around and learn those all important lessons. And I love how you said you realize that you control your future, that it's really down to you and that you can choose whether you are in charge of that or whether you're a victim. And it's obvious which path you chose. And incredible, because it takes so much courage and strength as well. And I'd love to hear a bit more about how you actually help people to turn their toxicity into their fuel for positive change and positive growth in their life. How does someone who's going through something toxic or struggling with something make that switch and change their mindset?
It's just a decision. It's that simple. I mean, it really is. And the problem is that it's a proactive approach. When you're in the midst of an adversity, the close proximity to an adversity, the only thing you see is darkness. You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's very little hope. There's chaos, confusion, emotion. And so it's very hard to understand this concept, the rocket fuel law, as I call it, during that time. So at that time, when I find people in those predicaments, or as I'm talking, if I talk to people, like if I'm talking to a crowd and I say, if you're in this predicament, we just need to show them hope. We just need to show them that you just got to keep going. When you're in hell, they say to run, don't walk. and there is hope. Everything gets better as long as you keep going forward. And I have a saying, thrust is a must. You gotta be thrusting forward fast. And so I get that message to those people. Now, if you're not in the midst of an adversity, the best thing to understand is that there is nothing that can stop you if you keep moving forward and take everything that you can and use it for fuel. And understanding that despite your emotions, despite your analyzing things or thinking about things and how they come your way, despite any of that, everything is for you. And when sometimes you're going after a goal or some target and something comes your way and it puts a roadblock there and it's just something you can't figure out. And some people say to me, well, sometimes, like some things come your way, it's just not supposed to work. Right. That's how it's fuel. It's a message to say, hey, at some point, this is not the route you're supposed to be taking. You're on the wrong route. Move a little bit to this way, move left, move right, whatever it is. So, but what happens is that you understand that your emotions lie to you. And so you can understand that when you start to feel that feeling in your chest when something bad happens or a setback happens, to immediately recognize it, acknowledge that that's going on, and then understand the rocket fuel law at that moment. And what it does is it gives you speed in looking for opportunity, because most people will sit and bask in a setback or an adversity and wait and look for people to play, feel sorry for them and look for sympathy and play the victim. And before you know it, they wasted all kinds of opportunities. They wasted all kinds of time. And most of the time, 6 months down the road, you look back and you're like, oh, I see why that happened now. But yet during that period of time, you could have realized it then and been on the right track sooner and not wasted stress and anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say how your emotions lie to you, and it's a sense that we feel the emotions and then our brain interprets what those emotions mean, but it's actually up to us how we're going to react to that. And if we just observe those emotions as feelings that aren't positive or negative or that don't have any weight to them, then we free ourselves from being in their clutches and being in the same patterns again and again and again. And as you share your story, it reminds me of when I was in my last year of university and my mum got diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we were really, really close. And I was writing my final dissertation, and I realized I have two paths I can take right now. I can let this crush me, or I can let this be the reason that I do better than I ever was planning to do. And I can do it for my mum. And so I chose the second option and got a top degree and the top mark. And, I don't think I would have even necessarily been striving for that if it wasn't for that suffering and for that pain, and realizing that I could channel it in a different way. Is that an example of what
Yeah.
you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that. And, first of all, anything that bad happens, like, COVID happened. A lot of people had decisions to make when COVID happened. When that arise, some people said, oh, this is the excuse that I was looking for. Now, this is subconsciously happening, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is the excuse that I don't have to grind anymore. And I can use this as the reason that I'm not successful now. I'm not making money. My business isn't working. Thank God this came.
Yeah.
Then other people said, oh my goodness, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Most people are going to quit and let up, and I'm going to push it down. Thrust is a must. I'm going to go. And I'm going to have the best year ever. And I'm going to have market share, like just grab market share. It sounds insensitive, but that's what happens. And so when I lost my stepfather, George, who stepped in, he was my mom's third husband. He's the one I left. I didn't really know him at that point earlier on, but he became one of my mentors and just a great guy. And he passed away in 2019 suddenly of a heart attack. And George, when that happened, it's funny how a loss of a loved one or someone important or close to you in your life, it's kind of funny how that happens where you're like, wow, life is short. I need to go make them proud. I cannot let them down. These are the things every time I go to a funeral or a memorial and I'm sitting there, that's what goes through my mind, by the way. I think about their lives and I think about how I'm going to miss them. But now I start to think about the responsibility that comes upon me to do something that they weren't able to do at the time of their death. It's just a way I look at it. So it's something interesting that happens there. And I agree with you on that 100%.
Amazing. It's so beautiful, taking on the spirit of the people who are gone in whatever way. I don't mean to use spirit in a loaded way, but just taking on something from them and allowing it to still live. I love the way you describe that. And that's definitely something I've experienced as well when I lost my best friend when we were 24 to suicide. And it was so sudden. And yeah, I think it is the sudden deaths as well that really shake you, right? And make you really think about life and death and how easy it is to just cross that line. And I felt like, well, I need to live for both of us now and live twice as much, and so
Yeah.
absolutely. And when it's our ancestors as well, I really feel that they are still within us in some way. And it took me 10 years since my mum passed away to really realize she's actually still living within me. So
Without a doubt.
what life are we going to live together?
Without a doubt.
It's up to me now. If you enjoy Going Conscious, please subscribe for a new episode every Wednesday. If you think your friends and networks would benefit from listening, please share this podcast of fulfillment and freedom with them. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. It's great to read what you think, and your support makes a big difference. Together, let's grow our courage and tools to transform and live the lives we really want to. As well as creating Going Conscious, I work as a transformation coach and conscious brand consultant. I'm on a mission to help holistically maximize conscious entrepreneurs to drive positive changes for themselves, others, and the planet. I can help you to transition and level up personally, and I can help your brand grow and make a bigger impact. To connect with me and find out more about how we can work together, find me on Instagram at Nikki Trott or on my website, nikkitrott.com. Please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you, and let's talk about your path of growth and development.
2 weeks after my stepfather George passed away, I felt this energy, this passion energy come inside of me. It was the craziest thing, and I don't expect people to believe it. That's on you to believe, but I know what happened. And I called my little brother up and I said, "Man, I felt something today, and it's just this energy." And that's when I really started this mission that I'm on. I had like an
Wow.
undying energy that came into me that I still have. That's just like nothing is stopping me. I can do whatever I want to do, anything I set my mind to, because I have this passion now. Because George was a really passionate guy, and he would, if you like, if you're at a party, he would be sitting on the couch and not talking to anybody, introverting. And then if you started talking about baseball or football or hunting or fishing, he would jump off the couch and like get really loud and passionate, and people would like be set back because of it. So I felt that now, and I'm 100% sure that you have the same kind of thing from your mother. There's no doubt about it. And by the way, my grandmother on my mom's side actually committed suicide. So I've dealt with that myself as well. And that is a oh man, it's hard to explain to people the feeling that goes through you and the thoughts that go through your mind when that happens. And when you get that news,
Mm,
it's
yeah,
yeah, I don't have
it's
much to
very
say about it.
different.
It's like,
It's a very different type of loss because I think our knee-jerk reaction is, what could I have done? How could it have been different? What could I have done? What should I have done?
yeah, and you feel
That's
so bad for them. Like, you just
mm,
feel so bad, like, "Oh, how could they be in that bad of a shape that they do that?" Now, I've done some studies, recently. I'm doing a lot of reading and a lot of just gaining knowledge, and I'm starting to more understand the mind and the brain and how it works and how people get to that point. And so it's becoming part of my mission now to really help people. You know, um, I want people to be able to, like, my mission is on people, like, all people are unstoppable to living the life of their dreams. Now, people, if they're trying to live the life of their dreams and they're feeling unstoppable towards that, they're not going to commit suicide. And so that's part of my mission, and understanding how people get to that point and how to bring them out of that. And there's a lot more to it than most people think, from just maybe psychology or psychiatry, or there's a lot more to it that people don't ever hear about, and they don't hear about it because there's a lot of people in the drug business that want to make money,
yeah.
and they want to sell a lot of prescription medication. Which my grandmother, when she committed suicide, overdosed on prescription medication. So I have a connection there with that, and I just my mom has had anti-anxiety and depression medicine and been hooked on it before and went through withdrawal with it. And I just these guys are trying to make money and just throw money at a problem or throw drugs at a problem instead of really getting to the root cause of it. And that's a huge problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you, and it's not something that I'm an expert in, and I'm blessed enough not to have suffered from mental health issues myself so far in my life, but from breath work and meditation and nutrition and so many spiritual practices which are completely free, which we can all access. I have found so much incredible development and inspiration and seen other people around me be completely transformed. And yeah, I don't believe that drugs are really the answer. And I'm on the board of a company called We Are Well, where we're looking at different ways to also bring natural wellness to people, and just to completely change that whole story around what you
Love
need
it.
to do when you're sick. But I'd love to hear a bit more about what you've discovered. I'm sure it's far too much to fit everything in, but one or two things that might be really key for you in your research that just show how people can heal without the need for addictive and money making drugs.
Yeah, I mean, really, it comes from, like, if you think about it, when you were born, we don't even realize that we're born like human beings when we're born. I'm a spiritual person. I know I'm a spirit living in a body, a vehicle that I'm using while I'm here on this earth. And by the way, I have my beliefs, of course. I do have the ability to change them as I gain more knowledge and information. So I'm not static and stuck in it.
Yeah.
I think that's important for people to be in that mode. But when we're born, we don't even know that we're human beings. At some point, children or babies, I don't even know the exact age or when it happens, might be different for each person. But at some point, we realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm a human being. Now, that comes from all of our surroundings. And you see, as we were born and we become a child and we grow, we have all these things around us influencing us and telling us how to think and what is what. Some of it is good because it's for survival. It teaches us what to look out for and how to act and what to do and what we need to do. But there's a lot of it, Nikki, that is just beliefs of other people that have come from experiences that they didn't need to have. Without getting too deep into it, but just think if I don't know, somebody was bit by a dog and now they go forward in life because they were bit by one dog to think all dogs are bad.
Mm.
And then when there's a child that's born and they're around that child, they're going to say, if they have that feeling, all dogs are bad. Now that child thinks dogs are bad and they have a fear of dogs. Okay, so this is like going on to the basically shaping a mind of a person. And that person, and I'm not just talking about fear of a dog, but it could be many things. Like somebody grows up in a household where they are around people that are complaining all the time and woe is me and life is dark. And that stuff starts getting programmed into the mind of that person.
Absolutely.
So when that happens, that person eventually everything they do is surrounding that thought and that belief that everything is gray and dark and there's no hope. And this goes for money. This goes for people's ideas on money and relationships with money, wealth, and worth. It goes towards a lot of things, but as far as suicide and not living, and not having confidence, somebody gets bullied and they think, here's an example. I was talking to my wife last night. I'm like, we were watching a show and this little girl was getting bullied by these kids around 12 years old. And I'm thinking, man, I remember what that was like to have people laughing at you and ridiculing you. And I remember that. And I'm so glad that I had the ability to know that they were really laughing at themselves. But I feel so bad for my kids to ever have to go through that. So I have to prepare them the right way. Most kids don't get prepared the right way. And so there's just it's all programming. It's all programming of the mind. And if you can prepare someone properly, to make sure they understand that you cause your future, you create your future, you're responsible. Where you are right now is on you and nobody else. And basically, I think it's centered around taking 100% responsibility for things. Now, I'm a practical guy. I know if somebody hits my car while it's parked in the driveway or the parking lot, I'm not even there. It's the guy hit the car. It's his fault for hitting the car. But I parked the car there, so I had something to do with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So an understanding that gives me control of my life. And when people don't have control over their life and they're not taking responsibility, they're more likely to just end it. So that's just a little bit without getting too deep. I could talk about that for hours, but
yeah, but I love how you illustrate those different ways that we absorb beliefs, and it just happens throughout our whole lives, doesn't it? From everything we read and we watch and we see in our media and our parents and our teachers and our friends. And I'm working through some of those myself. One of them was I was really brought up to believe that science is the complete and only truth. And it's not that I don't believe in science now, not at all, but it's just I am a spiritual being too. And it really took me to my late 20s when I started to discover that side of myself and to bring it out and to let it evolve and to nurture it and to understand that science is a perspective on reality and nobody knows what reality really is. And we can take so much knowledge and wisdom from science, but also from other places, from ancient wisdoms, from our own intuition. And I really believe that in our society, that's so much just science is fact and truth and nothing else. It really, and obviously some people have much religious upbringings or things which are very, very different to mine. But I find that it actually denies our own intuition and our own sense of knowing within ourselves because we're always looking externally for answers.
yeah, I mean, 100%. And what is moving to me? What is moving our bodies? Like, there's an energy there.
Mm.
and science can't explain everything.
Absolutely. Science completely cannot even include consciousness in any theories at all in physics. And I did an episode on panpsychism with Dr. Philip Goff a few episodes ago where we talk about this. And he's a professor and brought such incredible knowledge to that whole topic about how consciousness is absolutely not in any way measured in science. There's no way to do it yet. Maybe there never will be.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that a lot of times science or medicine tries to throw medicine at things that they don't understand.
Hmm.
So that's what I see. I'm still in deep into my studies and learning as much as I can. But I don't think anything's impossible. And what's funny? I did a little exercise the other day. It was kind of just impromptu, but I was driving down the road and I was looking at the buildings differently. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever done this before, but I was looking at the buildings as if they were people's thoughts, because that's actually what they were. Every building, and you go down a road or a street and you see different architecture, different size buildings, different colors. Every one of those buildings started as someone's thought. And when you approach things this way, it's just a little different perspective to take. But when you ride down the road and do that, you really are like, whoa, man, that guy had that in his head, or that girl had that in her head, or whoa, that's ugly. How could they have that in their head? Or awesome architecture. And you're like, wow, man, what a beautiful mind. So that really starts to really help you understand that thoughts are real, but they're not like a physical, tangible thing that we can see. So it's just a little exercise I did impromptu. I thought it was pretty cool.
I love that. I'm going to try that. Yes, absolutely. And our listeners, do feel free to comment on how that goes for you. That sounds amazing and really fun. Thank you for sharing that. And I would love to hear, Mike, a bit about what's coming up for you, because whenever we speak, I'm blown away by how many things you're doing. And I know you're launching some new tech companies, not even one. So we'd love to just hear a bit about what your focus is now in terms of how you're bringing your mission to the world through many different vehicles.
Yeah, so I launched the book Rocket Fuel, I think back in May, and it hit bestseller the first day, thanks to the early marketing and pre-launch marketing campaigns. But it's reached all over the world already, even Hollywood, which is pretty cool. An actress producer sent me a message yesterday about it, and then from there, I met a guy on Instagram in my travels through social media that had a tech incubator, which is basically some place where they start tech companies and then they launch them, scale them, and then exit from them. And so I was talking to this guy, and our missions as far as building people and having impact and force for good aligned. His name's Jared Yellen, and we started a company called Blooprinted, BLOO printed instead of UE. And if you go to blooprinted.com, you can check it out. Put your email in there and you'll get some updates on what's to come with that. But basically, that product, growing up, I would do things without being shown how to do them and figuring them out on my own, which cost me a lot of time, stress, energy, money. But I got it done because I'm persistent as I don't know what. And, but I started to think as I was getting coached by some performance coaches that there's things that you can do based on principle or precedence. Precedence is based on how things were done in the past and comparing to other people. Principle is, and this is coming from my coach Richie Dolan telling me, principle is based on there's got to be a better way. So Blooprinted is basically a software, project management software, social media / marketplace where people that have had success in any industry, any vertical, anything can put their blueprint to success in our system in a project management format. We have a creator studio that's phenomenal. It takes video, you can do audio, you can do pictures, text, and we can put them up on our marketplace and we can sell them to the world. So people can go in and search for a topic that they want to learn success in and have a blueprint for, and they can go buy it. And each person has a profile page where they can put a bio up and tell, what kind of expert they are in what field, so that people can choose to buy their blueprint or not. And we also create blueprints for people based on their own content if they don't want to build their own blueprint. So blooprinted.com, that's with 2 O's instead of UE. Check that out. And also, when I do one thing, I think to myself, wait a minute, if I can do one thing, why would I stop there? So I started thinking about Jared with Sela Labs said that he wanted to start 10,000 tech companies in 10 years. And I'm like, I think big, but that's big, right? I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. And when it happens to me, I don't know if it happens to a lot of people, but when it happens to me, if somebody says, how could you do that? I start to think, well, how could I? And I started thinking of my connections with the Grant Cardone and 10X and all my friends and the relationships that I had there. And I thought about the firepower marketing that Grant offers and promotion. And I thought about my buddy that wants to start 10,000 tech companies in 10 years. And I thought, what a match. Now, see, Nikki, this is a superpower of mine. I can find these matches. And I connected them via, and by the way, it's hard to get a meeting with Grant, just so everybody knows. It's not something that just happens. So I connected with Jared Glant, who's the CEO and president of Cardone Enterprises. And he's a friend of mine. And I connected him with my Jared from my company. And they hit it off. They set up a meeting with Grant. Grant's eyes got really big. And he just was quoted as saying that this is probably going to be the biggest thing he's ever done in his career. So it all started with thinking big and not just being satisfied with one thing and going after more. Now I'm happy all the time. I'm happy, but I'm just never satisfied. I achieved something and I'm like, okay, what can I achieve if I just did that? What can I do with like the next thing? Like how big can I take this? And so I've been mentored by some great people that think this way, and I just keep doing it myself now to exemplify it for other people.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Mike, as we come towards the end of our conversation, I would love to ask you, what does personal success look like to you? And how has this changed since the beginning of your career?
So personal success to me is having a target or a goal, which, that is all basically filtered through my mission, which is all people are unstoppable to live in a life of their dreams. And from time I wake up in the morning till I go to bed, and even dreaming, everything that I think about goes towards that mission. That pertains to my family, my finances, my health, my relationships, and my business. And so personal success to me is making sure that I am going towards that direction, not away from it. Now, that has changed drastically because I felt like as much as I was persistent and I would say inexorable, that's my favorite word now, inexorable, unstoppable. As much as I was that and hard-headed and all that and getting things done, I just didn't have the intention and clear focus that I have now. And also my belief lid has just blown off. Like it's almost as if I don't have a lid anymore as far as my belief goes. And that's phenomenal. And I mean, I just want everybody to have this. And some people hear this and so one of my coaches was telling me like, sometimes dude, you got to slow down a little bit because I don't want to tell you to slow down, but you may want to think about it because just so you know, I don't necessarily agree with him, by the way, but just so you know, when a speedboat goes through the water, it leaves a wake. And if people are sitting in the water there in their boat or what have you, the wake can disrupt them and shake them. So you just have to be conscious and aware of this because they may react a certain way that you're not expecting because of the wake hit them. So I'm not going to tell you to slow down, he said necessarily, but you need to be conscious of that wake. So I decided I'm not slowing down, but I will be conscious of that wake. I will be more empathetic for people if they don't understand where I'm coming from. So if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're like, dude, this guy's crazy. Well, that's fine. Sit back and watch and you'll see how crazy I am or how crazy I'm not. But I want everybody to understand that I am empathetic, that not everybody thinks this way. I've been there before as well. And so that's how it's changed.
And is there a key takeaway or message from our conversation today that you'd like to share?
Yeah, just, look, figure out your ideal life with no limitations. Don't worry about how it can happen. Don't worry about if it's possible. Do not worry about any of that. We cannot determine what is possible. We don't need to know how. You just need to know what you want with no limitations. Get clear on that. Commit to it. And then every day take consistent action towards that, consistent thought towards that, consistent words towards that, over your emotions and over if it gets difficult. Because consistency is way more important than your emotions and whether it's hard or not. So I'll leave you with that and just be unstoppable.
Amazing. Thank you. I love it.
Thank you, Nikki.
And is there a book that you've read recently and loved you'd like to recommend to us? Of course, we have your book that we'll have in the notes so everybody can get their copy. But what else have you been particularly loving recently?
Yeah, there's a couple, but I will talk about the U and then Squared, which has the little 2. at the top.
Yeah.
U Squared by Price Pritchett was just a little tiny book, but it's phenomenal. It talks about quantum leaps and being open to quantum leaps. You can still, make incremental successes, but be open to the big successes. That one I'll leave you with, as well as I would say the other one would be Science of Survival or Dianetics, which is phenomenal books by L. Ron Hubbard.
Thank you. Amazing. Brilliant.
Thank you, Nikki.
And where can our listeners find you online, Mike?
Clubhouse, Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere. I made sure I'm easy to find. So if you just look Mike C-Roc up anywhere, you can find me. Very easy to find. And if you DM me anywhere, I will respond. I love engaging with people. I don't care how far I take this thing. I'm always going to take time to engage with people.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Appreciate you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with the energetic Mike. He's a pretty amazing example of someone who has used their mindset to create the life they want without holding back. We all experience setbacks, but how can we use them to help propel us forward in the right direction? His approach to life and what he teaches others reminds me of the wisdom that nothing is being done to you, everything is being done for you. I'm fascinated by the way Mike describes how he sometimes looks at buildings as if they're people's thoughts, which of course in many ways they are. The way we look at the world is based on so many assumptions and beliefs that we already have and carry with us, often without questioning them. What comes up for you if you try going on a walk and looking at the buildings as if they are people's thoughts? Does your perspective on anything else in your life change? I enjoyed how Mike defines success as having a goal filtered through his mission. I believe that this clarity is what brings the consistency Mike talks about as being so vital for making a big impact. When we know what our mission is, it acts as a filter because it makes decisions so easy. We can clearly see what drives our mission and what blocks it. And then we can take action accordingly. How about you? Do you feel clear on your mission? If you'd like any help clarifying it, do reach out to me on Instagram with the word mission in DMs. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe now. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and short review. If you think people you know might benefit from listening to Going Conscious, please share it with them. I know I get much of my inspiration from podcasts which are shared with me. For all episodes, our library and more, visit goingconscious.com. Your support to spread this positive message of fulfillment and freedom means so much. As well as hosting Going Conscious, I help conscious entrepreneurs to transition and unleash their power and purpose with my transformation coaching and conscious brand consulting work. Discover more on Instagram @NikkiTrott or on my website, nikkitrott.com. I'd love to hear from you and to talk about your goals, questions, or how we can work together. And if I don't hear from you before then, see you next Wednesday on the next episode of Going